Welcome to the Kintsugi Hope podcast. It's great to have you with us. We are joined by some amazing speakers and experts who have experienced, like all of us, life's ups and downs. If you want to find out more about Kintsugi Hope, then please do head to the website kintsugihope.com. Hello everyone and welcome to the Kintsugi Hope podcast. My name is Jess, it's great to have you with us, and I'm joined here by special guest Clarie Miles. Clarie, why don't you introduce yourself to our lovely listeners?
Thank you, Jess. So I'm Clarie. I work for Kintsugi Hope as a mental health and wellbeing coordinator, and I also have another job where I'm a cognitive behavioural therapist for the NHS. And I guess my life's been involved around mental health in one way or another now ever since university. I've experienced episodes of depression myself and been a Christian all that time, and I think I've really spent 20 odd years thinking, how do I work this out? How do we work out having a mental health illness and being a Christian and doing both those things together, and how does that even fit? So yeah, that's a bit about me and where I've been coming from.
Wow. And so, like, your role within Kintsugi Hope is relatively new, isn't it? And only in the last probably 5 months, has it been?
Yes, I joined the team in April, which is really exciting. So I'm going to be looking after the material that we use in the groups and thinking about getting social prescribing up and going. And then also I've got involved in the mental health friendly church project. So this is really about how can we help churches to become those safe and supportive places for people who are struggling with their mental health.
Amazing. And today we're talking about self-acceptance, and it's a really interesting topic, but I guess to get us started, how would you describe self-acceptance? Like, what does it mean to you?
I've been thinking a lot about this since you asked me, and I think self-acceptance for me is really about being able to understand ourselves and to look at ourselves without judgment. So often, whenever we have thoughts about ourselves, we're like, oh, I like this bit of me, or I don't like that bit of my, I hate my nose, but I like the way I make friends. And we're always judging all the time. What do I like? What don't I like? What's good? What's bad? And I think self-acceptance is just being able to look at ourselves and say, this is me. This is who I am, the good and the bad and everything in between. And that's okay. This is just me. And so self-acceptance is almost like taking that level of judgment out of it and just being able to go, okay, this is who I am.
And some of us find that really easy, don't we? And some of
I don't know if I've yet met anyone who finds it really easy.
some of us find it easier.
Yeah, that's very true.
And some of us find that process of learning to accept ourselves, learning to love ourselves really, really challenging. And maybe actually we'll find it a challenge our whole lives. But what is that process that I get? Have you come to a place where you're more self-accepting of yourself, or are you still struggling with that? Like, how does that feel for you?
Oh, I've definitely changed. So I went through some pretty rough stuff, I guess, in my early 20s. That's when I had my first episodes of depression and some pretty crazy life events that weren't great, and really went through a phase of thinking that I was the problem, that I was the issue. And then I had a major episode of mental health. So I had a really bad episode of depression when I was 27. And it really floored me. I was off sick from work for about 6 months. I was really unwell. And during that time, I had a lot of counselling and I had a lot of friendship and I had a lot of people looking out for me. And I really had to kind of come to terms with the fact that actually I was okay, that actually I was enough. And it wasn't that there was something irrevocably wrong with me, and that maybe God loved me just the way I was. And maybe even more than that for me was that God wanted me to be happy. And I somehow missed that along the way, that it was okay for me to be happy. It was okay for me to enjoy life and to have nice things and to, just to be okay. And so that really changed for me, that episode of really coming to understand that I'm all right as I am. And no, I can't do everything, and no, I can't be the person that I thought I wanted to be, and I can't do all the things I thought I wanted to do, but that's all right. I'm still lovable just as I am. So yeah, definitely a journey for me over the last years.
Wow. And I guess in culture we hear the words self-love, self-care, self-actualization, self-improvement, self-investment. We hear all of those phrases a lot, and I guess it's all to get to that be the best you,
Yeah.
you know, reach your potential and invest in yourself so you can achieve your goals. And it's really interesting how our culture is moving in that direction of, you know, there's things that you can do to self-improve, but self-improving and all of that and self-acceptance, they seem very different, because acceptance is almost like, this is the way I am, this is the way I was made. But I feel like there is an element of, you know, actually we can all work on ourselves and like learn. So
Yeah.
how do the two of those things, like self-improvement, self-care, come together with self-acceptance?
I think the first thing to say is that self-acceptance, like any self-acceptance, isn't resignation.
Mm,
Isn't saying, oh, this is the way it is, and this is always going to be the way it is, and I'm always going to be this person, nothing's ever going to change.
yeah.
But self-acceptance is a really helpful starting point. And actually, often we jump into wanting to be self-actualized and self-improved and to self-love, and we want to feel all these things about ourselves and experience all these things about ourselves. Are all going to take quite a lot of work and energy and effort, but we don't even start from where we are. Like, actually, we spend a lot of time pushing away the bits we don't like and dismissing the bits we don't want, and that takes a lot of time and energy, just to hide everything we hate about ourselves and ignore those and then focus on everything we do want. And that's hard work. And I think self-acceptance starts the point of saying, look, can I just say this is who I am? And there's bits about me that aren't ever going to change. Do you know, the shape of my nose and the fact that I talk a lot. And so there were some bits about me, my body, my personality, that are just me. And they're not good and they're not bad. They're just me. And then there are some bits which, quite frankly, need to change, and I'm working on and will be working on for the rest of my life. But they don't have to change for me to be okay. They don't have to change for me to be loved, and they don't have to change for me to be accepted, and they don't have to change for me to be secure. That has to come first, actually, that feeling of, you know, people love me, God loves me, and and I'm living an okay life. And almost I have to start there. I have to start with that level of just, it's okay. And if I want to make changes, I can go on from there. But it's really hard to go on when we're not even starting at a place where we're okay with where we're starting.
You know, there's this phrase, isn't it, there, of like recognizing our unique value, and I think that's exactly what you've just spoken about. It's seeing what is valuable about yourself and then
Yeah,
going, you know what, this is the way I was created, um, and I'm going to celebrate those things. And
yeah,
those things might actually change throughout my life. Like when you're a teenager, there's certain things that you can like recognize as being uniquely valuable to you. But then as you grow, as you mature, as you move through life and life changes you and you get knocked about a bit, there's
yeah,
there's other things that we can recognize as well. So I think that's really good, because this the self-love movement, I guess, has been, it's like within my generation and the generation below, has been like huge. And particularly within the you know, within the mental health space, but also like the self-esteem space as well, like within your body, accepting your
mm,
body for the way it is, because there has been a huge like agenda of getting us all to fit within this mold of,
yeah,
you know, whether that's our character, whether that's the way we look. And that's for like all genders, not just girls.
yeah.
So I think that, you know, for me personally, I've one of the biggest things that I've done to help myself within that space of accepting who I am and like loving myself the way I am, the way God created me, was like actually removing myself from like social media.
Yeah,
Like, because I was like, you know what? Like, I could actually start to recognize. I came off social media for a while, like probably about 3, 4 months. And then I re-downloaded it because there were certain people that I wanted to like catch up with, and I wanted to see what was going on in their life, like they were having babies or they were engaged, and I wanted to like see what was going on in their
mm,
lives. So I like, you know, searched for the specific people and like went on a little like Instagram catch up. But then I kept it on my phone, and I then saw that like habit like instating itself, and I then really noticed like there was one day, I can't remember when it was, I think I was just getting ready and I just felt this huge weight of like, I am not enough, I am ugly, I'm so like, I'm not clever, I'm not good at my job, everyone else is better than me. And I was like, whoa. And I almost had this like out of body experience. And I was like, I have not felt like that and had one of those really deep
Mm.
self-critical moments in months. Like, what has changed? And I was like, it's because I've been on Instagram. Like, and I've
Yeah.
never, because we hear this, don't we? We hear it like, oh, social media is not great for your mental health and it can, add to the whole like comparison thing and
Yeah.
inner critic. But I'd never noticed it so vividly in my own life. And so I was like, you know what? That is absolutely insane that I have literally within like a couple of weeks of downloading it again and having it in my life and having it in my daily routine, have noticed this huge spike in like being really self-critical. So I was like, nope, that's it. I'm gonna have it for my work. That is it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have. So I think it's knowing where do you struggle to be self-accepting, and then actually maybe making those like changes. Have you ever had anything similar? Maybe not with social media, but have you had anything similar?
Well, there's a couple of things that you said that I just loved, and one of them is this idea of comparison, and it just reminded me of one of my friends. She always says comparison is the thief of joy,
Mm.
and I just that makes so sense. The minute I compare myself to somebody else, I'm either doing better than them and I get proud, or I'm doing worse than them and I get sad. Like there's no winners in the comparison market, and
True.
yeah, social media is such an easy place to compare it, and it's such a hard place to do without comparing. Possible but hard. So I'm definitely with you on that. But the other thing I loved about what you said was like trying an experiment. Like you just tried something different and then you see what impact it has on you, and then you can learn from that. And I love that approach to life. And there was one I did with myself, which was I have ugly days. I don't know if anybody else does, but I have days where I wake up and I look in the mirror and I think, oh, I just look awful and nothing I wear looks right and I just don't look right. And so I did this experiment where I took a photo of myself on an ugly day. And then it was probably a couple of weeks or something later, I had like an okay day and I took a photo of myself on an okay day. And then a couple of weeks after that, I looked at both photos and you couldn't see the difference.
No.
Like there was no difference. And that really taught me something about how much of what I see in the mirror is it's like an image made up inside my own head of all these thoughts about me and all these feelings about me and all my hormones I'm having that particular day. It you know and that was really helpful for me. So I think that idea of just trying an experiment, just saying actually, well, what does it change me to not have social media for a few months? Does it change me if I does somebody else see me differently the way I see myself? What if I don't look at a photo of myself or I don't look in the mirror for a day? Does it make any difference? And trying those things out, I think, can be really powerful just to see, just to find out for ourselves.
And it's almost having that distance from that moment. Like in the moment, your feelings were saying you look ugly, la la
Yeah,
la. And then 2 weeks later having that, oh, actually, I don't even look any different in the photos. Like that
yeah,
perspective changed. And I love that. That's such a great
yeah.
idea.
I did a lovely one with my daughter as well, bless her. She had a spot one day and she was just feeling really self-conscious about it, really like, oh, this is awful. And I said, let's try an experiment. We're going out to church this morning. Let's see how many people notice. And we'll ask. And we agreed together, we'd go up and we'd ask our friends, do I look different? And you know what? Nobody noticed. And even when she asked them if she looked different, they'd like look at her and try and look at your hair, is it this? And nobody noticed. And actually we're so consumed a lot of the time with thinking about ourselves. How am I coming across? What is other people thinking about me? And the reality is other people do not think about us as much as we think about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that comes into self-acceptance. I think partly actually the whole self, like you say, there's a big self movement, isn't it? Self-actualization and self-love, and how do I feel about myself and how do I think about myself and how do I look after myself? And actually we can spend a lot of time thinking about ourselves. And often we're a lot happier when we're genuinely doing things we love and doing activities we love doing and being with people we like being with. And when we're not thinking about ourselves at all because we're actually consumed in the thing that we love doing, we're often happier than the time we spend thinking about ourselves, whether that's good or bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like that self-critical thing can come into like not just the way we look, but the way that we, our skills,
Yeah,
our, the things that we're able to offer our workplace.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. The whole imposter syndrome. Am I
yeah,
really good enough to be doing the thing that somebody's paying me to do?
yeah,
Yeah, I think we make those judgments, don't we, and those comparisons all the time. And actually, we're social animals. We're meant to live in society. We're meant to be in community. Other people's opinions is genuinely important to us. We need other people to love and accept us, and it's really normal that we would therefore worry about whether people love and accept us and whether we're doing a good enough job. I guess the problem comes is when we spend so much time worrying and thinking about, am I doing a good enough job and do people love me, that then I stop doing a good enough job. And when it gets in the way of me just living my life and getting on with my life. The
sure.
other thing that's think about self-love is that we often use love to mean an emotion, a feeling. I don't personally use love in that way very much. I'm not sure it's that helpful, but when we use love to mean a feeling, we use self-love to mean a way I feel about myself. And we forget that we can't control that and we can't create that. And we can't create and control any feelings we have, any of our emotions in the day-to-day life. And sometimes the pressure of doing that, I've got to feel a certain way about me, can lead to, well, then I have to be a certain way in order to feel a certain way about me. And sometimes I think it can be helpful just to let go of that pressure to feel anything particularly, because that's out of our control. Emotions will come and emotions will go. And some days we will love ourselves and some days we will not. And that's okay.
Absolutely. Like any feeling, we go
Yeah.
on that roller coaster.
Yeah.
And like one of the best advice that somebody said to me was, like love is a choice. Like sometimes it's super easy to make that choice, and sometimes it's really, really, really
Yeah.
hard. And actually, that's the same with, any emotion.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely comes into self-acceptance and self-love, is because some days it's really easy to accept the way we were made and to celebrate the way we were made, and we maybe don't even think about it, and we're just so caught up in
Yeah.
whatever we're doing, and it's we just move through the day. But then other days it's like, oh man, okay, that did not go to plan. Why am I feeling disappointed? And then we can go down that rabbit hole, can't
Yeah.
we?
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and I think that rabbit hole though is like, I think that rabbit hole is really important, and we shouldn't necessarily like run away from it, because obviously it can lead to a very, dark place, and obviously we don't want anyone to be in that really dark place for too long. But there is a certain level of, you know, we're all responsible for, our own actions, and we're all responsible for, the way we speak to one another and the way we move
Yeah.
through life. And actually sometimes I feel like that self-acceptance thing, and we need to go on that process of actually going, I maybe didn't respond in the right way to that situation. I don't need to beat myself up about
Yeah.
it and, live in that moment for the next week. But I do need to recognize that there's something I can learn from that.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think you've highlighted there, actually, it's a time frame thing sometimes. So if I wake up first thing in the morning and I'm feeling really down for whatever reason, and then I can rabbit hole. I can go, oh, I feel really down, and then I think, oh, I shouldn't be feeling down. There's nothing to feel down about, and then I feel guilty about feeling down, and then I feel angry with myself because I'm feeling down, and now I'm feeling angry and I'm feeling guilty. Now I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry and I'm guilty, and then I'm thinking I'm such a rubbish mother because I'm sitting here feeling sad and angry and guilty and getting really depressed, and I should just be getting. I can go down that rabbit hole, and it's a time thing. And I think that's very different from having a short account with things we do. So if I do something wrong, if I, like you say, I say the wrong thing to somebody, or I'm selfish, or there's a thing that I have done, then I can quickly deal with that thing that I have done. I can apologize to someone if I need to apologize to someone. I can apologize to God if I need to apologize to God. Like you said, I can learn from it if I need to learn from it, and then I can move on. And actually having that short account between this thing I have done wrong, and now I'm going to apologize if I need to apologize, and I'm going to learn if I need to learn, and then I'm going to move on and do things differently in the future. that's a really healthy process to go on. That's a really positive thing, and to do that on a very quick and short basis is really useful. Once I start into the, oh, I did that thing and now I feel bad about doing that thing, and now I feel guilty about doing that thing, and now I'm just, and that goes on for days or weeks or months, and we're still thinking about that thing. Or even when it stops becoming connected to a thing at all, and it's just, oh, I shouldn't be like this, I shouldn't be this depressed person, I shouldn't, then what can I do about that? I can't say sorry for that, I can't learn from that, and that's when I get stuck. So I think that time distinction of, well, how quickly can I deal with this? You know, keep a short account, like in relationships, isn't it? You know, when we're with a partner, you know, quick accounts, deal with things quickly, move on quickly. So much healthier than letting things stew and stew and stew. And it is exactly the same inside ourselves.
Yeah, like nip things in the bud as quickly as you can. Yeah. And I don't know whether you can tell us a little bit about, because there's such a thing as a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and like how a growth mindset can actually be a really healthy place for us to transition to from a fixed place. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a buzzword, fixed mindset and growth mindset now. And and like all things, you don't want to take it, it doesn't explain everything in life, and it's not right. But I think in terms of that, in terms of the way that we look at problems or the way that we look at struggles, and firstly it's starting to say, let's, you know, in this acceptance place, let's start with accepting that I am not perfect and I'm going to make mistakes, and that the world is not perfect and bad things are going to happen to me. And those are pretty much a given, and it doesn't take us long through life to learn that those are a given. And like I said, this growth mindset is this sense of, well, actually, when I make a mistake, rather than punishing myself or beating myself up or making it worse and worse and worse for myself, how do I move on? Like we were saying before, how do I learn how to move on? But also having that when something bad happens to me. Because when something bad happens to me, I can sit here and go, why does that happen to me? And it might be awful. I mean, really bad things do happen, and we often have no idea why they have happened. But a much healthier question can be, is there something I can learn from this? You know, or is this something that God or the world is teaching me? What can I take from this? And just having that switch in our heads that goes from the why is this, which is mostly unanswerable, to the what can I learn, can help, can just give us a tiny different perspective on how do I think about this? What can I take from this thing which I'm going through and which might be awful, but there might be something beautiful that comes out of it. And again, there might not, let's be honest, but often there is, and sometimes it takes us years to find the beautiful thing that came out of our suffering and our struggle and our disappointment. But sometimes that beauty comes and we get to see it and we get to acknowledge it. And, you know, when we were talking at the beginning about kind of things we like about ourselves changing over time, I think often the things we most like about ourselves when we're older are those things that have come out of the misery and those things that have come out of the struggles and things that, and they weren't there when we were children, and they weren't there when we were teenagers or young adults, because we hadn't been through that thing. But now we've been through that thing, and that's changed us as a person. And often it changes us for the better as a person. And if we can recognize that and see that, then that gives us some sense of meaning to the misery that we're struggling with, we're suffering with. And I think we all need meaning in order to carry on through.
Absolutely. And sometimes the gap in between us being able to even ask that question, going from a why to a what, that's okay if there is, you know, a gap. And you know, depending on whatever the situation is, we might need quite a period of time where we're like, why, because that is part of grief, I guess. And then we may get to a place eventually where we're able to go, and you know, what did I learn from this, and or what can I learn from this? And the only thing that you might be able to answer to that question is, I can't control everything. I've learned that I can't control everything. And that is all I've learned. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing, isn't it? Is like when we're saying about this process and you're saying it takes time, and we're saying we might learn different things from it. Again, that level of acceptance, that's all right. It's all right if for one person it takes a week, and for another person in the same situation it takes 6 years. Like, that's okay. There's
Mhm.
there's no judgment in that. It's okay if it takes us different amounts of time. It's okay if we learn entirely different things from the things we go through, and actually having that sense of self-acceptance for ourselves, saying, do you know, it's all right that I'm struggling with this. It's all right that this one's taken me years to get over, but it took them 3 weeks to get over. That too is self-acceptance. That too is just being able to say, that's what it is.
Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
made differently.
We're all made differently. We all do things differently. There's no rights, there's no wrongs. We don't need to compare our grief or our sorrows or our struggles to anybody else's. And we don't need to compare our values and our uniqueness and the wonderful things about us to anybody else's either. We're thankfully already very, very different. And it's therefore it's fine if my unique things about me are entirely different to your unique things about you. And
Mhm.
actually that's better in lots of ways that they would be
Exactly.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. And at Kintsugi we have a phrase, don't we? Which is, well, we have a word that we love to use, which is flawesome.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what flawesome is and what it means to you personally? Because I guess it sums up self-acceptance perfectly, doesn't it, really?
Yeah. So being flawsome is about acknowledging that we have flaws and that we're also simultaneously awesome. Um, and and I just think that's really great, because actually we need to have both of those extremes. Both need to say, I am fundamentally fairly flawed. I have significant limitations in myself. There are things I'm still dealing with. There are things I'm struggling with. There are scars in me which run really, really deep and really, really hurt, and they're there, and I'm not going to ever deny them. That's what they are. But I'm also awesome in the sense that I'm a creative child of God. Like, how amazing is that? That I live and I breathe and I think, and I have this incredible body that moves, and I have relationships with people and a chance to be part of a community. And there's so much that is awesome just about being a human being, just about being alive. And actually, self-acceptance isn't about sitting in the middle and going, oh, I'm all right, just actually, let's go to both extremes and say both are amazing. You know, both I am incredibly flawed and I am incredibly awesome. And they're both true of me, and they're both true of everybody I will ever meet. I'm never going to meet someone who isn't flawed and who isn't broken and who doesn't get up my nose sometimes. Um, I'm never going to meet a human being who is not awesome. You know, everybody I meet will be both of those things. And that's a really lovely way to go through life, just to look at every single person, even those people on Facebook who have it all together and on Instagram. They too, you might not see the cracks, but they too are flawsome. They too are amazing people, deserving of respect and love, and they're also pretty flawed, and they're
Mm.
going to let you down and they're going to let other people down, and that's okay, because that is who we are as humans. That is who we are as people.
Mm. And I guess that can help us also come to a place of accepting other people for where they're at as well. Sometimes our expectations of other people are so high, and you know, in moments where we're like, they've really let me down, or that isn't the way I would have done it, or
Yeah.
you know, I thought they would have done it like this, I thought they would have been there for me, I thought they would have been more understanding. Actually, sometimes, yes, you know, people do sometimes let you down, and that's fair enough, and it's okay to question that, but also recognizing that we're all on a journey. And
Yeah.
I guess through relationship, we can have those conversations with people and go, you know what, like, I understand that we're all trying our best, but the way maybe you responded to this situation, I kind of felt a little bit let down. Like, can we talk about that? Like, but that can obviously only happen in true friendship and true relationship. You can't just walk up to someone random and do that. But I think, because I think Diane always says at work. So Diane is our operations manager at work, and she's our co-founder. And she often says, um, presume everyone's doing their best. Like, presume the best
Yeah.
of everyone. And actually, since she's kind of said that, and since I've got to know her, and she says that a lot, so true. Like, if you presume everyone's doing their best, even if they're not, it really helps you just be really, really kind towards other people and
Yeah.
be accepting of where they're at in their journey, and go, you know what, like, yes, maybe I wouldn't have done it that way, but I'm just going to presume that today they're doing their best, and so am I. I'm doing my best for today, and your best will look different on every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really true. And one of the things that reminds me of is that something that I learned from marriage prep, actually. When I got married with my husband, is that we just always assume the other person is doing their best. And if I don't know where my husband is, actually I can pretty much tell you he's probably working really hard for the sake of our family, and whatever it is he's skived off and doing, and I'm sitting there doing the washing up going, where are you, why are you not helping me? You know what, he's just doing a different thing, but he's doing his best for our family, and he presumes that of me. And it's a really helpful thing in our relationship, just to always assume the other person is absolutely doing their best. So that's really helpful.
For me, knowing that like life is a journey and that I don't have to have myself sorted by the time, because I think I often thought, right, I'm 26, I've got to have my life all together by the time I'm 30. I've got to have a husband, I've got to own my own house, I've got to have my first baby, if not my
Yeah,
second on the way.
yeah.
I've got to have a good job, I've got to be earning X amount. I'll have a degree. Maybe thinking about doing an MA or a master's or a PhD. Like, I'm going to have all the best clothes. I'm going to go to church regularly. I'm going to be reading my Bible every day. I'm going to have great friendships. I'm going to text all my friends regularly. I'm always going to be making cakes, and my house is going to be super clean. Like all
I'm
these
exhausted, Jess, just hearing it.
literally, me too. I've suddenly realised how many of those things I'm not doing. But I'm not going to beat myself up.
No,
So I think actually going, you know what? Like, who told me that is what success is?
and do you know, really interestingly, in my role as a therapist, actually, I meet a lot of people in their 20s who say that, and I really get that, because when I had my major episode, I was 27, and I thought too. I thought by 30, I'd be married, I'd be pregnant, I'd own a house, I'd have a proper job. And at 27, when I was so far away from all of those things that you wouldn't believe it, I completely collapsed, because my life was nothing like I thought it should be, and I could see no way of it getting to be like that. And yeah, I meet so many people who are like, well, everyone else seems to be earning this amount of money, or other people are going to be sorted by the time they're 30, and other people know what they're doing for career, and I should. And that question of, well, who says? Like, where do we get this idea from that by 30 you should be sorted, or by 40 you should be sorted, or interestingly that there is a definition of sorted or successful
Yeah.
that we all agree with and aspire to and really want in our lives anyway. Um, and it's worth asking that question, I think, of ourselves, saying, well, who says? Do you know? Who says that successful means X, Y, Z? Because for you, it might not. And that, why is that not okay? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go on, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, another thing that's really made a difference for me is changing from being goal orientated to value orientated. And this is an approach that comes out of acceptance commitment therapy, ACT. And it's this idea that instead of having all of these goals, I'm going to have this job or be in that relationship or have that house, we work out what are our values, what are the things we really believe in and really live by, what are the things that are important to us about how we live. Is it important that, for example, maybe it's important to me that I have really honest relationships, and maybe it's important to me that when I go to work, I get on well with my teammates, and maybe it's important to me that wherever I live is a clean and beautiful environment. And actually, I can live to those values. I can live to having honest relationships, and I can live to getting on with my teammates, and I can live to having a clean place that I live in. And that doesn't matter whether I'm married or not married, or have a house or rent, or earn £20,000 or earn 10,000, because I can live according to my values. And actually, maybe success is about living out our values, about being the person we're meant to be in whatever situation we happen to be in, rather than thinking we should be in a certain situation, which we may or we may not ever be in.
I love that, because then your values can morph and change as your life changes, because our values do morph and change as we grow and as we get older. And I love that. And as your life changes, so say you are single and then you do get married, or say you get a divorce, or then you have children, or then your children leave home, your values can morph and change, but you're not going to then suddenly feel like you're not successful. based on something being present or something not being present, or
Yeah,
having reached the next stage of life.
yeah.
I really love that.
And that idea, what you said earlier about what you have control over, not having control over things. Well, do you know, quite frankly, there's very little control I have over many things in my life. And I might not have control over whether I get married or whether I get divorced. That might be something that happens to me, and it might be outside of my control in an extent, or what job I have, or whether I get made redundant. But what I've got control over is what kind of person am I in that situation that I'm going through. I can always be the honest person that I want to be in that situation. I can always, how I am in a situation, that's the bit I get control over. And actually, if I can base my success on not am I doing this job, but actually am I being the person that I want to be whilst I'm in that job, then I get to be successful a lot more often. That makes me a lot happier.
Yeah, exactly. We feel like we're what's the word, kind of like smashing life, if that's
Yeah,
the mindset that we
yeah,
have.
exactly.
Every
If
day
I
we'll be
set
like,
my target just like, well, today my goal is that I'm going to laugh once a day,
yeah,
and then I smash it. Done.
exactly.
Much easier than having a goal of today I'm going to make homemade strawberry jam, because that can be quite hard.
Was that your goal for today?
No.
Oh,
Just thinking of a day when it was my goal and then it all just went completely wrong, and those days happen, don't they?
yeah, exactly. Whereas if it was like, I'm going to try something new,
Yeah. Then
well, you
even if it goes
tried.
completely wrong, you've
Yeah,
smashed it.
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's
Oh,
making that switch from goals to values can be really helpful, I think, in
I love
terms of just being happy. And maybe that comes back to self-acceptance as well, of just saying, I'm going to accept there's some things that I've got control over, and I'm going to accept there's some things I haven't, and that's all right.
Oh, thank you, Clarie. This has been amazing. And I feel like I've had like a bit of a rejuvenation of my own kind of self-acceptance as well. So
Oh,
that's
good.
really, really good. Thanks so much, Clarie, for joining us.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you so much for joining us at the Kintsugi Hope podcast. It's been great to have you with us. If you want to find out more about this amazing charity that creates safe and supportive spaces for those that are experiencing social isolation or poor mental health, then do check out the website kintsugihope.com. We'll see you on the next episode.